Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's webinar of Claritysoft Focus Training. My name is Susan Arnold. I'm an implementation specialist here with Claritysoft, and today's topic is a guide for system administrators. What we will be covering today will be the settings menu in Claritysoft and going through each of the topics there and just discussing what they are, what they do. This is designed for those of you that are admin users in the database because you're the ones who can design the structure in the settings menu. Before we start, I just wanted to take a look at a record here because what you're doing in the settings is you're basically creating the design of your database. You're adding the customization, the custom fields that you want in the different modules. You're setting up the access profiles for your users, meaning what data can they see in the database, what actions can they perform in the database. So all of that is taken care of in the settings. And before we start, I wanted to just log into or open an account record because this is really what you're looking at. You have this screen layout here, which is also controllable and in these settings, and you have your different fields. In this particular record, the sector, the type, and the product interest field are all custom fields that have been added. And so when you add these custom fields in the settings, then you're able to see them in your records. And each module, you can have whatever custom fields you need for that module. And then most of the rest of these are fields that are already built into Claritysoft. So we're heading for that. I always like you to know where you're going. So with that, let's just go ahead and head to the settings module or the settings section. To get there, you click on this little gear-shaped button in the upper right corner, and it will take you to our settings. And then down the left-hand side are all the different options that you have. And basically, we're just going to work our way down through these, go through a lot of them very quickly, and then some we may spend a little bit more time on. And as I said, if you have questions, feel free to ask them. The first section here, called My Settings, is what any user in Claritysoft would see when they log into Claritysoft. They can go to the settings. They will see just this first section. They probably won't see this audit log. There will be some things here that you may or may not see in your database too, depending on what setup you have. The bottom section here, starting with system settings, this is what the admin user will see. So the regular normal user, non-admin user will see only this first section. So each user then has the capability to make some changes here. Email settings, very important. This can be set up by the individual user. This is what connects Claritysoft to the email that you use for your outgoing email. If it's Outlook, you set it up to connect to that. If it's Gmail, you can set it up to that. So whatever email server you use for your outgoing email, you can configure it here. You get to choose what you're using and then put in the credentials for it. You might need some help with this with either your implementation person or tech support. If you're an SMTP, you can choose others and then set up the information for that. So that's your one of the first things to do. Now, this can be done by each individual user, but further down in here under this users and access section, there is a place for the admin user or your IT person to do all users and set up their email configuration all at once. And then the individual user may only need to come in and enter their email password. But this is important to get set up and working so that you can send emails out of Claritysoft. Email templates. These are templates that you could create that are standardized emails that you might send out for an introduction to a new customer, or perhaps like here, I've got left a voicemail for you, that sort of thing. So you can create, and again, this is individual. Each individual user can create their own email templates, or someone can create the email templates and then you are able to actually share them with other people. So for example, if I open this one that I've already created, you get an email template, you create a name for it, you put the subject line in for the email, and then you can come down here into the body of the text and type your message. So here it's saying hello and then first name. Well, this is the first name field that's being pulled in from the database. And what you do to enter any field, if I click down here, I can click on this little green arrow which says insert fields, and then these are the pieces of information that I can pull in to my email. And it can be placed anywhere in the text. All I have to do is click where I want it. And if I wanted to pull in the account name, I can do that. It's going to insert the field for the account name. So this is nice to have where you can create some nice emails that are generic, and then you can pull up the template when you're ready to send an email rather than retyping the same thing over and over and over again. So it's a nice feature to have. We do cover this in the webinar we had a few weeks ago called All Things Email. We go over this in more depth, but this will give you an idea that you can do it. Once you have created and saved a template, then you are able to share it by clicking on this row action button. You click share it, and then whoever created it may share it with any other user in the system, all of them, or specific ones by clicking in the checkbox. So that's a very nice feature that if someone is very good at creating the templates, that person can be in charge of doing that and then saving them. And then that helps standardize it too. If you have, one person creating the templates with certain fonts and your logo and all that sort of thing, then it makes it nice and standardized for what goes out. Email signatures, another thing that a new user will set up. You can create and save your email signature here. You can basically copy it from your Outlook into Claritysoft and paste it down. And then you have to right click on the image. It probably won't show. And then you go to image properties. And this link here, you will right click and copy. You will go to upload, choose file, put the link into here. I'm doing this really fast to go to the folder where the image is saved. Then once you have it, you will send it to the server, and then it will come back to this image info tab and show you the graphic there, and then you can resize it and click OK to put it in. So very quick. Again, you can, any images that are there, like if you've got Facebook and all those other types of things too, you can put those in. So quick overview. Preferences. These are personal preferences for the user. Time zone, you can set the time zone. You might have different users in different time zones, and so they can set it. Now, this is not a drop-down list. What you would need to do, for example, if you were in Central, you would just simply start typing Central, and then it's going to pull up all the ones across the world, and you pick Central Standard Time. So you just have to start typing until you see yours and put it in, okay? Date format, you can choose one of three: month, day, year, year, month, day, or day, month, year. Most of us in the States use the month, day, year. Europe uses these other two. Canada uses this one for the most part. So you pick which date format you want to see in the database. Default calendar view. Your calendar in Claritysoft has different views, and you can create the default one that when you go to the calendar, it says, okay, I want it to be the 5-day work week because that's the way I want to look at my calendar when I go there. So this allows you to set the default one so that each time you go to the calendar, it's going to show you that view and not the one that you don't want, and you have to change it every time you go to the calendar. So I happen to like the 5-day work week. And then this one is the same. The default module is when you log into Claritysoft, what module do you want to go to by default when you first log in? Do you want to go to accounts? Do you want to go to leads? Do you want to go directly to activities where your to-do list is for the day? You again may decide which module that you want to land in, and each person can land in a different place. And obviously, once you get in, then you can go anywhere else. So mine is set to accounts. And then you simply click apply. A little message will pop up that it's saved, and your changes are saved. My information. This is for each user to put in basic information of phone number, email address, and all of the address information. This, once filled in, will feed into quotations and sales invoice, places like that within the database so that you don't have to type it again. So it's good to put this in here, fill it in, again, save it, and you're on your way. Export options. In Claritysoft, you are able to say filter for a list of accounts or contacts or activities or whatever. Select that list, and then you can export it out to Excel. Now, it's possible you might not have the rights to do that, so you as admin users can set the rights for your users to be able to export to Excel or not, and we'll talk about that in a minute. That's in their access profile. But if they can export to Excel, then they can come here, choose a module, and then choose what columns of data they would like to go out in a standard export. So if it's, they have a default set of fields that they want to come out all the time without having to reset it, then they can set it here and save it, and then that way they can, when they do an export to Excel, it already has their set list and they can just do it. If they want to add something else while they're doing the export, they may, but this gives them a way to create a default list. So you do that, you apply, and then again, they can do that for each module in the database that they have access to. All right, navigation menu. This one allows you to, again, personalize your navigation menu from the standpoint of what order do you want to see things in. For example, the standard for the leads module when you first log into Claritysoft, leads is somewhere down in here, which technically it's at the beginning. It makes more sense to be at the beginning because you do leads, then accounts, then contacts. So you can click on a module, click the up or down triangle to move it where you want, and place these things in the order in which you want to see them. You also can move things to what's called an auxiliary menu. If there are modules you don't use terribly often, but you have access to, you can click on them and move them over to the auxiliary menu. And then what will happen is when you log into Claritysoft, you'll see all of these, and then underneath it, it'll say more ... And when you click on the more, then you'll see these underneath. So it's creating a subset of your modules. I like mine where they were, so I'm going to put them back. But this again is a user option that they can do. And then again, you as the admin user can even control what modules they can see. And we'll get to that. Themes, simply what color do you want your database to be? So you may pick a different color. If there's something that matches more your company colors or corporate colors, then you can choose that other than the blue that we have. And then change password. If a user would like to change the password that they have, they can come in here, type in the current password, enter a new one, confirm it, click change. Then they can log out, log back in with that new password. So it allows them to do that. So those are all the My Settings section. So now we're going to get to the system settings, which the admin user is able to see. And this gets more into the structure of the database and all the information that flows throughout the database. So first of all, under system settings, and this means they're system-wide, are the general settings. Again, you want to enter your company name. If I come here and I make changes and I try to apply them, I have to have a company name in here. This is your time zone, that if your corporate office is in Eastern time, but then you have other people that work for you in different time zones, you would set what your corporate office time zone is here, your date format. Financial year, you want to set the month in which your fiscal year starts. You know, it might be January, could be another month of the year, perhaps July or something like that. The importance of this is for reports. In many of the reports, we have time filters that can say pull out first quarter, second quarter, third quarter. So if your January is your start date of your fiscal year, then first quarter is going to be January, February, March. If it starts in July, then it's going to be July, August, September. So by setting this to the correct month ensures that the reports are going to pull out properly for you. A currency symbol, $sign. Allow global search. When you first log into Claritysoft, this is going to say no. In most instances, I suggest you change it to yes, because what this allows you to do in the database is you can go to the option under the Spyglass menu that says global search. And it allows you then to look in leads, accounts, and contacts for a person's name or a company name. And so it gives you that ability to search across the 3 different modules looking for a particular company or person. The other way this is very helpful is if you have a user or users in the system that are set to individual as their access profile, meaning when they log into the database, they can only see those records where that person is the owner of the record. They cannot see anyone else's. It's possible they might pick up a lead from somewhere, or, you know, another possible account or whatever, and they have no idea if that company is already in the database. So what they can do is go to global search and choose or type in the name of the person or the name of the company and search across all the modules to see if that person exists. If the person exists, it will show up, and it will show the full name of the company, the contact person, the location, and it will show who owns the record. So they are then able to see other, you know, an account or contact that belongs to another user in the system and say, oh, so-and-so already has this. And then they can choose to talk with them about that person or not. So that's where the global search is very helpful when you're using things as individuals in the database. All right, dashboard performance. This is your dashboards or charts in the system. Normally, they will automatically update as you change data in the database. They will refresh themselves automatically. Sometimes, depending on, you know, how many records you have in the database and all of that, it could slow things down a little bit. So you can come in here and change your dashboard performance to cached, which means it won't update automatically. You would need to click refresh to do that. So if you find some things, you know, seeming to be a little bit slow, you might want to change this setting to see if that helps. And then you again click apply to save your changes. So, and then it will come up save successfully. All right, system notifications. These are notifications that go out from the database for different things that occur in the database. And right now, or when you first log into Claritysoft, we have emails already set up that these things will come from. So a general notification would just be something coming through the database out to a user from some trigger. Support would be coming from the support module if you're using it. A reminder, this is for the email, like if a calendar appointment, you want the system to remind you of an appointment that you have 15 or 20 minutes ahead of time. That's what it's coming from, the mail that it's coming from. Reports are coming from here. Now, you can use these, or you can create your own, and then you could make, like if you wanted a report to come from a specific person rather than from this generic one, then you could make this one inactive and add your own. And when you do this, again, it's going to go to that email settings that you saw before, and you need to set up what the email settings are for that email. So this can be added. I had a situation just last week where a person has created a lot of business rules and was sending things out, and they were going out from here, and he was requesting a reply back. So obviously the reply was not coming back to him because it was coming back here. So he went in and added his own business rule from his own email, and now everything's working fine for him. So, that may be a reason to come in here and change it. Otherwise, you probably are fine. Module names. You are able to change the names of the modules in Claritysoft. So for example, sometimes people want to change accounts to companies or leads to prospects or something like that. And that's fine, you can change it. The only issue is once you've done this, and I'm going to jump back to the database here. It says companies here, but it says accounts, and everywhere else it says accounts. Search accounts, all accounts, accounts. So that can be a bit confusing to your users. So you may want to think about that before you change one of the module names. I mean, if it makes sense to you to change it, that's fine. But just be aware that almost all the other things that go along with that are not going to go to the new name. So that's my only caution there, is to try it, see if it works for people or if they get more confused rather than less confused. All right, logo. I think most of you have discovered that you can put your own logo in here, and basically you choose your file. We do recommend a particular resolution here. Once you've selected the file, you click the update logo, and you'll have a little red rectangle somewhere in the middle of the screen that you have to resize your file to fit, or your logo to fit in that little rectangle. And then once you've fit it in there, you click crop, and then it will put your logo at the top of the navigation panel right here. You'll have your company logo up there, okay? So again, you want to find one that's small to begin with, so you're not having to cram it down to be smaller. And then you can also add a link for your website that when you click on your logo, it would take you to your website as well, okay? All right. The next three here are under system settings because they feed out to the entire database. Name prefix is found in the contacts module. When you're adding a contact person, you can select a prefix. And so you can come in here and add a list of all the types of prefixes that you use. So you can, click add a new one, save it, and it gets added to the list. And then you can create as long a list as you need. And then this becomes part of a drop down in the contact record for the prefix field. And the same thing with the suffix field. If you need to use a suffix, you might use these kinds of suffixes. You may have medical type suffixes that you need to use, or engineering is another area where people have different engineering suffixes. And you can add that list here. Now, a caution with the suffixes, this is a single select list in the database, and sometimes people have multiple certifications that you need to select from. So what you may have to do is put in various combinations that people have as your choices, so that you can select one that matches. So that you might have to use as a bit of a workaround there. All right. Then lead sources. This is a data or a field that is global throughout the database. It starts in the leads module. It's in every module throughout the database. So that's why it's under system settings. And this is where you can add your own lead sources. And then you can, whatever lead sources you need, you can update this at any time in there. So again, click the add button, type the name of the source that you want, and save it. So it will then be added to the list, log out, log back in, and that will now be in the drop-down list. Okay, Nancy is asking me a question about the time zone, trying to put in the Central Time Zone as U.S. Central Standard Time, but message received. You have to, in that field, if you drop back to it, where is it? You select all of this and you just type, if it's in here as Central Standard Time. So if you just start typing Central, this is the one that you want, Central Standard Time. It's not US. It's a little tricky. It used to be a drop down, but then because we have people all over the world, it became too cumbersome to have all the different time zones. So we put them in here, but you start typing what you want. Okay, so let me know if you get that correct. So we're through system settings. Users and access. Now this is an important section because this is where you're going to add all your users, their login information. You're going to assign them what we call an access profile, and you're going to, with that access profile, you're going to control what they can see and do in the database. So adding the users, basically pretty simple. You simply click add, and you can type in the information for the user, and you need to put in first name, last name, their job title, their phone. Make sure that you enter their email address. This is very important because if you do not enter their email address, then the system cannot send out notifications. So when they want an email reminder for an appointment, they will not receive one if there is no email address here. Title and phone are optional, but email is absolutely important. Username will be their login name that they have. So it can be first initial, last name, last initial. I usually recommend whatever it is for their email. If it's, first initial, last name, use that. If it's first name dot last name, then you would have to take the dot out. But you can decide and then be consistent with all your users so that for you, you don't have to remember what you did. And then a password, you can enter a password here and just give them a generic password to start with, and then they can go in and change their password. I'll show you something else you can do too. Reports to don't necessarily need, if you want them to report to a manager, they can, but it isn't that important if they're using the all access profile, because that means they can see everything anyway. And then you set their time zone. User types you can define over here. You see user types 1 and 2. This allows you to say create maybe regions or territories or whatever type of category you would like to have for your people that you can filter on and you can pull into reports and categorize in reports. So it just depends on your company whether you need these or not. They're optional. Okay, now this is always the tricky part down here. It's not really tricky, it just is confusing, I suppose. If a person is set to an access profile of all, none of this matters down here because they already can see all records in the database. If you set them to an individual profile, that means that when they log in, the only records that that person will see will be records where that person is the owner. From there, then, you can branch out. You can create groups A group, and again, that's over here, you create user groups and name them. That's where this is coming from. A group can include multiple people. So if we have this user as a member of the inside sales group, that means that this user can see his or her own records plus the records of anyone else who's a member of the inside sales group. So this is a way of controlling what someone can see, and you want to start as an individual and then you branch out. Now, possible too, this person might be perhaps a sales manager, and besides being a member of the inside sales group, you may want this person to also have visibility into the outside sales group. Okay, so that means now the person can see his or her own records, all the inside salespeople's records, and all the outside salespeople's records. You also could make the person a member of outside sales, then he or she would see both. So this is how you control what people can see in the database. Now maybe the person can see inside salespeople plus one of these people down here. So this person is not on the inside sales team, but you want this person to see one other user's records. So you can click in anything. So you can choose groups and create groups, or you can not do groups and simply come down here and say, well, this person can see this person, this person, this person. So this is really nice from the standpoint that you can control exactly what the person can see in the database, okay? And if you always start with individual, then you have control of everything. If you give them all to begin with, which is what I'm going to do, then they can see everything anyway. And you don't need to do any of the groups or anything like that, unless you have other, well, no, you don't want to do the groups if you're choosing all. We also have a manager profile, which if you assign the manager profile to someone, and then that's when you could use that reports to, because if you have a person set up as a manager, and then that's the reports to person, then the people underneath the manager that report to that manager are able to, they would be set as individuals, but they would be able to see sideways, let's say, to the other people who report to the manager. So they can see sideways to each other's records, but they can't see upwards to the manager. So the manager can see down, see his own records, and see downward to all the people that report to him or her, but the people under the manager cannot see up. So again, lots of ways to control it. And besides that, you can create your own custom profiles. And we'll look at that in a second. So time zone, all this here. Then you're going to choose, should this person be an admin user in the database? If you make them an admin user, then they can see all these settings that we're going through. If you don't, then they only see the My Settings section. If a person leaves, you do not delete them as a user. Never, never, never. You deactivate them and you set their profile to terminated. When you do that and save the record, that person can no longer log into the database, and it frees up a license for a new person. And it preserves all the records for that person, because all the activities they put in there, all the accounts, contacts, everything that that person has added in the database is preserved under their name, but then those things can be, the accounts and the contacts can be reassigned to a new person that comes on board. So you never want to delete a user. You deactivate and terminate them. I don't think you can delete a user, but don't do it if you can, okay? Just deactivate them. All right, so I cancel out of here just in case I screwed something up. All righty, then that user email settings. Again, what I said before, a single email user up here. This one gives you all your users, so an IT person or you can switch to each user and put in their settings and save them and test them so that the person knows it works. When that user logs in, their email is already functional for them. Access profiles. So we were already talking about the different ones. You can control whether you see all records in the database or individual records in the database, but you also have other controls when you open the profile. So first of all, you can indicate the person using this profile is a salesperson or not. They're a lead manager. A lead manager means that they can, in the leads module, change the ownership of a lead to another person. So you may have someone who's like the sales manager can do it, but other people cannot. And then this is where you can control what modules are visible to the user. If you're not using sales because your sales go to your ERP system, you can turn it off. And then you don't see the sales module when you log in. If you're not using quotations because you might do quotations some other way, you can turn it off. So you have control on the visibility of each of the modules. Can the person create a new record? Can the person edit their own record? For the most part, you probably want that to be true. Deleting, I absolutely would turn off deleting, except for activities and calendar, because they would need to be able to delete appointments. But everything else I would turn off just to be on the safe side. And again, if you run into issues, you can always come in and turn these things back on. The other thing here, if a person doesn't own a record, then a record would be considered shared. They can see another person's record. If you turn off editing for shared records, then they can see the data in the record, but they can't edit it. And so this is a way to protect, who the original person who entered the record from, inadvertent changes being made. Now, the person could add activities, opportunities, any of that, but they couldn't go in and change the phone number, the address, and that sort of thing. And then again, deleting, I would take that away for all of them, for shared. Feature access. Got to speed myself up here. Mass email, can they do that? A mass email is two or more emails being sent out at once. I would say yes, you'd want that. Export to Excel, you can decide, do you want people to be able to do that or not? And that goes back to that export options thing. If you let them be able to do it, then they can. If you don't, then they can't. Merging accounts and contacts. This allows you to merge duplicates for your accounts and contacts. Again, you may want to only give that to, yourself as an admin if you're the admin person. Importing data, same thing. Action plans, can they create them if that's turned on in your database? Group edit probably is helpful because then they can update a number of records with the, all at once, and that makes it easier than going to every single record and doing it. Manage products, probably not, okay. Advanced report, maybe, yes, no. Marketing module, if you have the marketing module, you can choose to give access to certain people with the marketing module and not others. Report permission, same thing. Can they view? Can they create, edit, delete? You need to think through here. This probably needs to be updated because half of them are turned off. And then sales stage access, we actually have the ability to have different people in the database see different sales stages that are in the opportunities module. So that's all there to work on. And you can create custom access profiles. So if you want one set of people or even one person to see different things, then you create a custom access profile and assign it to that person, okay? When you create it, you set your data access here to either be all or individual. So that's important right there. And the user groups, you can define user groups, then that feeds into your user record, user types we talked about. Now, customization, we're finally to what we're here for. This section is when you're designing your database and setting it up where you're going to live for a while, because you're going to go from module to module to add your custom fields. And basically, you decide what custom fields you need. You go over here, you click Add, and I could say Market Segment here. Again, whatever I want, you have all of the different data types, and you can pick. So if I wanted a drop-down multi-select, I can then choose that, and I'm just going to do A, B, C, because I don't want to waste time typing. So I would type real markets here, what market segment they're in. I simply click Save, and it saves it. Now, a design consideration. If you're using the Leads module, any custom field that you create in the Leads module, if you create the same custom field in accounts, contacts, opportunities, and then all the way through quotations and sales, that data, when you enter it in the record in the Leads module, will flow throughout the database, okay? And you can see here I have product interest, product ABC. I have in accounts, I have product interest again. So the field name needs to be the same, the data type needs to be the same, and the drop-down list needs to be the same. And you can copy this and paste it as you go across. So that's something to think about if you're using the Leads module, because it allows you to get that flow of data. Preferences. This allows you, if you want to have account numbers assigned, you can have account numbers assigned and in Claritysoft, and you can start with a specific number. You can have a certain number of leading zeros, and then if you want a prefix like AC or something like that, you can type that in here. And then this says to allow duplicate records. So you have to have the account numbers turned on if you're going to allow duplicate names of records. So that will, and then once you create this, you can generate account numbers for all your existing accounts in the database. So that's an option for you to do if you want. Now, account types 1 and 2. These are fields that in the Spyglass button, there's a segments search, and this is the set of fields that it looks at. I don't always use this with the people that I work with for implementations because it doesn't go anywhere else in the database like the custom fields do. It's only in accounts, but they're 2 category type fields. You give them a name. This one's called sector, and you save that name, and then you add a list of options. And then this one, again, you can name it anything you want. So this one's type, and this is what type of account it is. So as long as it only needs to be in the account module, then these are, again, 2 category fields that you can do a very quick search on. So those exist here. They also exist in the contacts module where you can categorize your contacts. Sometimes this can be used as a job role or function, something like that, so contact type. So again, you can decide if you want to use those or not use those, and then use custom fields instead. So here we have different custom fields that are added. Again, you just click the Add button, type a name for the field, choose the data type, and then save it. It's a matter of just looking at the kinds of data that you might have already in spreadsheets or coming from another CRM and deciding where it needs to go in Claritysoft. So let me collapse this up. Preferences in contacts. Again, you can have a contacts number. That seems a little redundant if you're using account numbers, but you can decide on that one. Opportunities, little bit different here. You've got custom fields, which you can add. Here's my product interest field again that came from the Leads module. Preferences, this is for, first of all, choosing what number of decimal places you want in your pricing. You can have 2 or 4. And then if you want to have an opportunity number generate automatically, then it will fill that in when you are creating a new opportunity in the opportunity name field. So again, you can create what number to start with, how many zeros, and what prefix you would like to have. Now, here's the important part of this one, sales stages. These are the steps or stages that you go through in your sales process. We have put some in here. You don't have to use these. You can change them and put in your own steps. But basically, it's all these different steps or stages you go through until you win, you lose, or you reach no decision. So one of these three results is going to occur. To change these, I can come in here, and I can type something new. Oh, I don't know what else I've got here. So discovery. The probability, you can set a % probability that when you go to this stage, it displays a 10% probability, and you can change that. Then these categories here, anything that's not won, lost, or no decision should go in forecast for you, okay? So you want to put these in because this feeds into filters in the opportunities module. So when I click save now, I have saved this with a new name. So I can add new ones if you need new ones. When you add them, they'll end up at the bottom of the list, but you can move them up to a different position. So you just make sure that's highlighted, and then I can move these to different positions, okay? So you want them in sequential order. What do we do first? What do we do second? And work your way through. So this may be sitting down, deciding, what are the steps that you follow now, and then just getting them in here so that they're, everyone is working off the same set of steps. And then your one, you don't have to call it one. You could say contract signed or whatever you want to call it, but it's in this one category. So the category is important to set. So make sure you review your different sales stages and make sure you've set them up properly. Okay, I'm getting all the way back. I'm not paying attention to questions. Sorry about that, Richard. He's asking me about the terminated access profile. Have all the check boxes filled in? Well, it just means when you set it to terminated, even though all those check boxes are still filled in, it just means, it just tells the system they can't get into the database anymore, no matter what, okay? So terminated and deactivate mean they no longer can log in, and so that the other stuff can still be checked because it doesn't have any relevance anymore once you terminate them, okay? Products. Do this quickly. This is a confusing field because it's not really products that you sell. Actually, this one has been changed. When you first log into your Claritysoft, this is going to say new business or add-on business is what it's going to say. It's really a category field. It's not a specific list of products. It's so if you have product categories, that when you create a new opportunity, it would apply to only one category, then you can put what you want there. And that's why we made it the new business and the add-on business, because it's one or the other. It can't be anything else for the whole opportunity. You have the products and services module where you can add your specific product list or price book, okay? All right, and then quotations are very much the same. Custom fields, if I would add that product interest in here, it would flow in. Preferences for quote numbers and pricing, you have 2 decimal places or 4 decimal places for the pricing, and you have for taxes, you have 2, 3, and 4 for your, if you need to add sales tax, okay? And then you can add your payment terms. These you could get from your ERP system and add in here as your payment terms. And then you have a status for your quotes of active, accepted, rejected, lost, and others. So you can, if you wanted under active to add a sub-choice, you could click on active and then come over here and add a sub-choice underneath it. So if there's some other choice you want on these, you can, okay, it's like here on accepted, it's pending or payment approved. So that adds additional choices for you. And then the same thing has to do basically with sales. I'll come back to templates in a second, but it's the same thing. Custom fields, preferences on your pricing and your tax format, probably want to make sure they're the same as what you've selected in opportunities and quotes. And then status for your invoice, what is the status for the actual sale invoice. And then activities, these are your activity types. You may put in as many different activity types as you like. I usually tell people, think about the kinds of things you might want to see in a report that your people are doing each day, each week, and add those types. For example, if you do a lot of on-site type visits, for various purposes, you might want to add on-site visit. You might want to add something very specific that they do, because that's what you want to track. How many of these did they do? So, keep it simple, but at the same time, make it so that you're getting accurate reports out that tell you exactly what everybody is doing. And then in activities, I don't know if you've discovered this yet, there is one category in the activity record that is, you can't change it and you can't remove it right now, but you do have 2 additional custom categories that you could create. So some people want to indicate whether this activity had to do with service or support, or maybe inside sales or outside sales. Again, you think about how you want to pull it out and categorize it in a report or search it in the database. So that pretty much gets us through all the settings here. And I did want to go back here to templates, because in Claritysoft, if you're using quotations, you are able to create your own quotation templates and invoice templates if you're using the sales module. We've given you sample ones in here. So basically you can open a template, look at it, it will have quote, it will pull in the data. So this is pulling in my company, my name, this is that information thing up at the top in the settings. And then it's pulling in the quote number, the dates, and then the account and contact information into the quote. And then it will be pulling in the product line items. So these can be, you can use one of ours, you can add your logo to these, or you can create them from scratch. If you need help with this, and you're still in implementation or onboarding, you can talk to Linda or myself to get you started. If you need some additional help, tech support can also help you. But you can create these. They're written in XML code, so if anybody knows XML code, then you can write it in code. So, or you perhaps can copy it from somewhere else. So they are in XML type code. So I wanted to mention that. And then the other thing is, after you've created all your custom fields, this is the next most important step. You go to UI templates under customization, and this is where you do your screen layout. So you come over here, I'm choosing the account UI template, and then you're supposed to select the profile, the access profile. Well, what we've done recently is we've added a base template, which is like your master. And so you go to that one first, and then I can come here and I can move all this stuff anywhere that I want. If I don't want to see a field, I drag it away. If I want it in a different position, I move it to where I want it to be. And then I simply click Save. Now you also can make a field read-only or required. Don't go crazy with the required though, because nobody can save a record until they enter all the required fields, and you may have a bunch of people mad at you. So, be reasonable on what you want to capture here. And then report permission, what can they do with reports, okay, in the accounts? You choose that. And then once you've set this all up, you click Save, and it'll pop up with a message here. Yep. And then what you want to do is you then want to copy it to all your other Access profiles that you want the same layout for. So the quickest, easiest way to do this is to simply go to Check All, and then you can click the little X to collapse the window. It'll say how many are selected, and then click Save. It then copies this layout to all the other Access profiles. So you can see my product interest is up here. I move this over here, and I move the account number there. So that's a quick, easy way to get all them accomplished. Now, if I want something different, say for customer service rep, I can go to that one and say, well, for this one, for some crazy reason, they don't need to see sector and type. I mean, that makes no sense, but if that's what you wanted, you could move it over here, click Save. Then the customer service rep Access profile is now different than all the rest. So it just lets you create different ones, different layouts. And then the next step is you need to log out and log back in. So anytime you add custom fields and change the user interface, then you need to log out and log back in. And that's the main thing you learn as an admin user, is that you're logging in and out all the time until you get it all done. And now if I go into my account record, I can see the placement of my new field. So my product interest is up here where I moved it. My account number is here, and that QuickBooks field is gone. So my layout is the way that I've set it up. I've come to 1 hour again, so I'm going to go to that last slide here for tech support. You can call tech support at any time. Then any new ideas, critiques, anything, please send to info@claritysoft.com. Hopefully I answered everybody's question. I will let you go and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you next week.